Sorry, folks, I was muted. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mr. Sage. Welcome to Human Anatomy. It's about 11:27 on Monday, and normally these meetings, our class sessions, will be at 1:30 to 2:30 on Mondays. But I had an important meeting I had to get to at that time, so I'm doing it now. So I'm going to wait a few more minutes for people to come on in. If nobody comes in, then I'll just record this and it will be available on the Start Here page. Okay, folks, it's 11:30. I'm going to go ahead and begin. I'll be adding people if and when they show up. This is Human Anatomy. My name is Mr. Sage. It's been a while since I recorded one of these, so this is kind of interesting for me. Today, we're going to be going through the syllabus, the Start Here page, what you need to know about this class to be successful. And then I'm going to start chapter 1. If you have missed this, be sure to watch the lecture back, take detailed notes, and make sure that you are taking notes on the note pages that I'll be showing you later. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go directly to the syllabus. Okay, this is the syllabus for this class. Much of this is just kind of stuff that you have to put in there, read it at your own leisure. The really important thing that we're going to start with now is the contact information. Now, I changed this recently, but it did come to you in the email I just sent out a few minutes ago. If you haven't checked your email yet, please do so. In the email, I tell you that I do not normally reply to student emails from their personal email once the class is started. So it does say the email is here, and this is only if you're not currently enrolled in any of my classes. So you use this if you're not enrolled, use Canvas email. The reason why I need that is because often someone asks a question that I don't want to have to answer 5, 10 times as different people ask the same question. So what I will do often is if you send me a good question, I'll answer it, but then I'll CC or add in all the other people in the class so they can also hear that answer, so then they don't have to ask it again. So please use only Canvas email with me. I'll try to remind you a few times, but then after that, I won't reply. So please use Canvas email only. Okay, the textbook that's required is an OER textbook. That means it's free. You don't have to pay for anything. If you went to the bookstore and they said you had to buy something, that is an error. This is an open, free textbook. It's for both anatomy and physiology, so we'll be using that. We'll also be using visible body labs. I'll be going through that a little bit as we go. These are the student learning outcomes, the things that you should learn if you successfully finish this class. Judy, are you there?
Hi, good morning, Professor.
Good morning. I just want to let you know we are being recorded for the rest of the class, so just want to give you that heads up. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm really glad you joined us, and it's really nice to have an actual person.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So be sure to ask questions along the way. Don't assume that there's going to be like a question period. So if something comes up, just say something, and I'll pause what I'm doing, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm going to go back to what I was doing, which was going over the syllabus. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, we were talking about some of the things in the syllabus. These are student learning outcomes, what you should learn if you've completed this successfully, the catalog description, course content, course objectives, late work policy. Now, late work policy is important. You guys should take note of this. I know things come up, and it makes it really difficult to get a week's worth of assignments done if you're having, a week from hell. Somebody's in the hospital, you had an accident, you've been very sick, something like that. Now, there's good news on that and bad news on that. The bad news on that is I do not accept any late work for any reason. But here's the good news. The good news is that I drop your lowest assignment. Actually, several of the visible body labs I drop as your lowest, and your lowest discussion board, and your lowest test other than the final. So if you miss a test, you don't need to ask for a makeup because the answer will be no. Instead, that will automatically drop as your lowest and will not affect your grade. So please don't ask for an extension on work that you could not complete during the week. I don't give extensions, but I do drop your lowest. So that makes it a little bit more fair. Academic honesty. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of ChatGPT, but we all as instructors have. Please do not use any form of plagiarism, including that, for any of your essays or labs. It's really bad news. And if I suspect that, we'll have to have a meeting and then you'll have to explain yourself. So here's the deal, guys. Use your own words, especially in an essay. What I'm looking for in my essays is, could you explain this to somebody else in the class who has no idea anything that you're talking about? And not to me. I understand all this stuff. You're not trying to dazzle me with how brilliant you are. You're trying to explain it in a detailed way using analogies, maybe even the same analogies that I use. But do not grab stuff off the internet, grab stuff out of the text or out of the lecture notes verbatim. That's plagiarism and will not be tolerated. So please don't do it. Add drop policy is here. Disability statement is here. Syllabus disclaimer is here. You can even print the syllabus out if you want to. Okay. Judy, do you have any questions about the syllabus that I just went over?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the first start here page. Well, Judy obviously got there. She found the link to this meeting. For the rest of you, will also need to get there to get a recording of this lecture. But I'm going to go through it, point out some of the key things. We're going to go into visible body a little bit. And then when we're done with all the introductory stuff, we'll jump right to chapter 1. Judy, have you had a chance to print out chapter 1?
Yes, Professor, and I'm looking at the first look at anatomy, so I'm ready to fill in the notes as we're talking.
Good job. Okay, so the rest of you folks who are watching this, you want to print out the very first chapter, or put it in a format where you can fill in the blanks. I'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go through. But the notes are set up in a way that instead of writing everything out, which you would in some teachers' classrooms, or having everything written out for you and then you having to do nothing, it's fill in the blank. And what that does is it makes you participate, but doesn't mean that you're furiously writing the whole time. So it allows participation and listening. Because listening and thinking are the key things you're supposed to be doing during a lecture. And if you're spending the whole time writing and not thinking, listening and asking questions, you're missing out. So I'm going to jump right over to the start here page. Where are we? I think I need to, Judy, can you see the start here week 1 page now?
Yes, I'm able to see it.
Okay, great. All right, so she's been there. The rest of you guys will need to get here. The question and answer discussion board is a great place that you guys can go to share questions with each other if you don't feel comfortable asking me. So if you have a question, go in there and leave the question. If you're somebody who's helpful, which many of you are, go in there and leave an answer if you happen to know it. If somebody doesn't feel comfortable asking me, you could ask me and then post it there. But generally, I hope that you folks will feel comfortable asking me questions either during the lecture or through email. And remember, this email, not personal email. I know that's hard to check a different email than what you're used to. But there you go. Now, notice what it says here in red. Some people have a really bad strategy of saying, well, I'm really busy during the week. I'll just try to get everything done on the weekend. That will not serve you well at all in this class. You should probably stop right now if that's going to be your strategy for the semester. If you want to have a low stress, successful semester with me, you're going to need to do a little bit of work during the week along the way, because things happen on the weekends, right? Power goes out, stuff like that. And if you say, Mr. Sage, I waited until Sunday and then something happened, can I have an extension? As I said, the answer would be no. So it's very important to get this work done along the way. Now, this is a very complex, difficult course in an 18-week format. And right now you guys are taking it as a 12-week. If you're watching this in a later semester, it may be a different format. But the point is, in a less than 18 week, there's a lot of assignments happening each week. So not procrastinating, not waiting until the last minute is very important. I believe our first discussion board is all about procrastination. So you guys will get that it will not work for you if you want to put off all the work until the weekend. It's just not gonna be feasible. Now take a look at here, week at a glance. I'm highlighting it in blue. It is exceptionally important that you use this and only this as what to do and what is due. What you don't want to do is go over to these things that say modules. That is not what you want to do for the course. Don't go anywhere over here except maybe grades. I think that would really be your only place that you would want to click on the far left. All of the other links that you need for my course for a particular week are right here. Now, this week at a glance is basically a summary of everything that you need to get accomplished by the end of the week. And everything that's here is due on Sunday midnight. But what wise students do is they finish everything by Saturday night and take Sunday off. Sunday is a day of rest, right? And you guys should take Sunday off. The only time that you should be working on Sunday is if you've had a major emergency earlier in the week and you could not get those done before then. Do not count on Sunday being your regular work day. Okay, so if it says under week at a glance, that's what you got to do. Okay, here you need to register for visible bodies. You need to do that ASAP. You want to get in there and register. And then what Judy has already done is she printed out chapter 1 notes, and she's going to be filling them in as we go later. And that's what you need to do. Now, one of the things you're going to find after you print them out is at the end of the lecture notes are review questions. Now, those review questions are based on the lecture. So you don't need to go searching in the book for the answers to those. They're right there in the lecture. Now, Judy, are you still with me?
Yes, Professor, I'm still here.
Okay, Judy, wouldn't it be nice if the review questions at the end of the lecture notes were the same as the test questions? What do you think? Would that be nice?
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be nice? Do you think
Yeah.
that those will be the test questions?
I had you for physiology, so it behooves me to answer.
Oh, you cheated. All right, so she knows. Yes, okay, Judy knows. Yes, those review questions are the test questions. The only difference is the test questions will be multiple choice, true, false, etc. And those options will not be available except, I think, the very, very end of the course. So studying those review questions will be the main thing that you want to do. I have sent you an email on some helpful hints on how to take my tests. So instead of going through that right now with you guys, I want you to read that email I sent to you very, very carefully, and then ask me if you have any questions. Judy, did you get that email from me, the long one that talked about how to take tests, etc.?
Honestly, Professor, I just got the message on Canvas that the class was changed to right now. So I haven't even messed with anything else.
Okay. Well, I just wanted, you did get an email from me, which means that the email's working. So everybody else should have 2 emails from me. One saying the lecture began at 11:30 instead of the 1:30 normal start time, and helpful hints on how to negotiate this class. So everything that's in there, most of the stuff that's in there, I will not be going over, but you really need to read carefully and ask me about. Okay, so the live lecture link is here, and then right below it will be the recording of the lecture. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a quick link to Zoom because they are recording right now and storing it on their servers. But what I do then is I move that recording over to YouTube, and then I put closed captions on it, and then I'll put a big, a preview screen for YouTube in the place of the Zoom recording. So it will have subtitles if you're having difficulty hearing what I'm saying. Okay. Now, the PowerPoint is here. Don't expect every single chapter will have an available PowerPoint. And the reason why I do that is because if you have the PowerPoint and the notes, some people are going to be tempted not to watch the lecture. Now, you don't need to watch the lecture, but you'll miss a lot of really important things, especially things having to do with the essays, the essay portion. There's 2 or 3, sometimes 4 essays on my tests. So if you don't watch, then you won't be able to get that, and you'll struggle with the essays. And I'll be giving helpful hints during these lectures for the questions on the test. So if you don't see a PowerPoint on a particular weekly module, please don't request it, because to fill in your lecture notes, you got to watch the lecture, and it does take time. You do need to be able to do it, but you should be able to do it with your phone. Believe it or not, you can watch my lecture and get those notes filled in. Okay, the syllabus quiz is there. Some people have already done it. It's just basically, did you read the syllabus? Do you understand the basics? I think it's 1 point. Anyway, here's a video that one of my colleagues did on how to use visible body. I think it's very helpful. You might want to check it out. Now, the visible body labs that you guys are going to be doing, there's not very many of them this week, but there's going to be lots more next week and the following. Sometimes 5 or 6 graded and 10 ungraded lab activities. So you really need to pace yourself through this. I want to say that and Judy, are you still with me?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Can you see this page that says getting started with visible body and visible body in the upper left?
Yes, I can see it. It says pending release and it's available at 3:06 p.m.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was not until 3 o'clock today. I may need to fix that. Okay, so when you click on that, then you'll get to this, and it's basically a PowerPoint that walks you through how to use visible body. So between this and this this video that my colleague created, it should really help you. But once you've watched that and read through the PowerPoint on visible body, then if you have questions about visible body, you can ask me. But I'll head off some issues at the pass and say, I'm having difficult. Judy, can you see my Start Here page? Judy, you still with me?
Yes, Professor, I was having a problem with visible body earlier. You know that link where it says click here to register for it? It
Yeah.
opens in another window, and I'm not able to access it through there. However, if I click on the visible body link within Canvas, I'm able to see it. So I'm not sure if any of the other students are going to have that same problem.
Okay. You might want to post that in the Q&A form.
I did.
For you did. You're way ahead of it. Okay, so yeah, so you may need to play around with visible body a little bit. It's very difficult for me to try to get in as a student because I'm registered as an instructor. So if you tried what Judy just said, try either the registration link or the first lab link, and if neither one works, then we'll have to figure something out. But I'm going to go back to the weekly module page, and we'll continue on. Okay, so there's the visible body labs you need to do this week. And here is the discussion board. So I'm hoping that takes us, okay? Now, first is past experiences with science classes. Second, what makes a good science class? And third, procrastination. Now, just to let you know, the discussion boards are going to be for most of the semester. There are going to be some weeks where there aren't. And the key to being successful with the discussion boards is giving lots of detail. Now, most of these are your experiences or your opinions. And most people, when you ask them their opinion about something, can go on and on virtually forever, especially if it has to do with their dogs or their kids. Okay, so pretend like you're talking about your dogs or your kids when you're doing this, and give me lots and lots of detail. Please remember that you also have to comment on at least 2 other student posts, so you may have to come back later to do that. I think the posts are set up that you have to make your main post before you can see everybody else's post, so that you are less inclined to want to plagiarize from them. The other thing that's available here is the rubric. Now, I don't know, you should be able to see this, but what it does is this is how I grade your discussion posts. So the main post is 7 points, 5 points, or 3 points. And you can see how they are graded. Basically, full, lots of details, some details, poor details. Now, when it comes to replying to other students, you have to have at least two in order to get away from the 1 point. So if your one reply to another student is really awesome, you're still only going to get 1 point. And if your reply is mostly saying things like, yeah, I agree, good job, and just agreeing with the person, that's not what we're going for. We're asking for follow-up questions and more experiences that relate to what they have said. I hope that makes sense to you folks. Okay, so there's the discussion board. Be sure to take care of that early for your main post and then later for the replies to other students. Okay, we're back to the Start Here page. Notice there's another link for the discussion board and the lab activities you want to get going with that. It does say 1, 4, and 5. That's an error there. I think all we're doing today is chapter 1. Chapter 1 is it. So that's a typo. Okay. Judy, do you have any questions about the Start Here page before we get going with chapter 1 notes?
I do not, Professor. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Okay. At this point, I'm going to start up chapter 1. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. The only time I will pause is if Judy has any questions. The rest of you folks, while you're watching this, you'll need to hit pause, rewind, especially when I say, hey, this is an essay question. I'm going to take really detailed notes because I'm going to be looking for a lot of, I know it sounds egotistical, but a lot of what I have told you about it to back as part of your essay. Okay, so we're going to go here to chapter 1. Here we go. And you all should be seeing chapter 1, a first look at anatomy. Okay, I'm going to go through this. And Judy, does this match your notes?
Yes, it does, Professor.
Okay, now notice that the word structure is in green. That should correspond to the first blank. Now, the first couple of chapters, I've done that for you as a form of kind of like training wheels, lecture note training wheels. And then eventually these green words will disappear and you'll have to figure out what word goes in the blank. So anatomy is a study of structure. The word anatomy is derived from the Greek and it means to cut up or cut open. So early anatomists learned about human anatomy by cutting open cadavers with dead bodies. Anatomists examine the relationships among the parts of the body along with the structure of individual organs. We go down as far as individual cells. Generally, anatomists don't study subcellular or cellular parts of the body or anything smaller than that. And these are early, this is a woodcut of early anatomists cutting open a dead body to check it out. Okay, what is physiology? It's this scientific discipline that studies the function of body structures. Now, I always tell my students, anatomy is like detailed body parts with a little bit of what they do. And physiology is a quick review of anatomy with detailed function of the parts. Structure and function cannot be completely separated. What that means is the structure of something it helps form its function. So you can tell a lot about what something does by its structure. Form is related to function. So the shape of something often can tell you what it does. Okay, microscopic anatomy. Now we're talking about cellular structures here. Uses slides to examine tissues. And tissues make up organs. So what are some key terms here? Cytology is cellular anatomy or the study of cells. Cyto means cell. Ology means to study. Study of single body cells. We don't do much of that in this course. Histology is the study of tissues. Now, there is going to be some histological study in here, but most of the histology that you would get in this course would be if you were taking it as a hybrid or on-campus laboratory portion. Gross anatomy. Now, gross anatomy can be gross, as we use in colloquial terms, but gross anatomy doesn't mean that it's disgusting. It means that you can see it with the unaided eye. That means you don't need a microscope. So gross anatomy or macroscopic anatomy means you can see it without any assistance. What are the different approaches to gross anatomy? Developmental anatomy studies changes in the structure during an individual's lifetime from conception all the way to death. Embryology is specifically the changes that happen to a baby before it's born. Regional would be the structures in a particular region as a single unit. For example, some doctors specialize in eye, ears, nose, and throat. That's a region. Or some are orthoscopic surgeons specializing in the knee. Surface anatomy is a big part of this because unless some of you are going on to become doctors, most of you will be interacting with the surface of your patients. And so I'm going to be asking you to know quite a bit about surface anatomy. Systemic is the gross anatomy of each system, including all organs. So, for example, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, these are systems. What are some diagnostic branches? Pathologic or pathology is anatomical changes due to disease. And to answer the question that you may have now later, we don't spend a huge amount of time on pathological anatomy or pathological physiology, but some pathologies will be included. The main focus or core of this course is normal human anatomy. Radiographic, if anybody's interested in X-ray tech, this is the way that you would be going. So you'd either be using ultrasound, MRI, X-rays, CAT scans, etc., that penetrate into the body. Okay, what are some different levels of organization in the body? The simplest level of organization within the body is the chemical level, which is composed of atoms and molecules. And this is a diagram of an atom. Atoms are the smallest unit of matter. Now, this isn't exactly true, believe it or not. This is from the text. But to make this a correct statement, you would say they're the smallest units of matter that still retain the properties of that matter. Give me just a moment, folks, and I will be right back. I have to send off a really quick message to my wife. Sorry about that. No, we all have important stuff. Okay, so atoms are the smallest unit of matter that still retain the properties of that matter. So for example, all neutrons are the same, all protons are the same, and all electrons are the same. But protons are a smaller bit of matter than an atom, so that's not completely true. It's only true based on what I just told you. Okay, so there's cells, make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ system, and then the organ systems make up the organism or the person. What are molecules? When two or more atoms combine to form a molecule, such as a protein, a water molecule, or a vitamin. What are macromolecules? They are large and more complex molecules, such as DNA and protein. So we're not going to be talking a lot about these. We talk about them during physiology and in general biology more. At the cellular level, specialized structural and functional units called organelles permit all living cells to share some common functions. Organelles are things like the nucleus, mitochondria, etc. The cell is the smallest structural unit that exhibits the characteristics of living things, organisms, and is the smallest living portion of the human body. What are tissues? Tissues are groups of similar cells with a common function that makes up a tissue. Tissues are precise organizations of similar cells that perform specialized functions. What are organs? When you put different types of tissue together, they form what is called an organ, such as the heart or lungs. What's an organ system? Well, I talked about it. If you have several organs together, for example, the heart and lungs and blood vessels, that forms an organ system. There are 11 organ systems in the human body. We'll be going through them a little bit today. What is an organism? Well, if you put all the organs together, then you get a person or an organism. Organization, complex structure and order. So this is one characteristic of all living things. Organized. The metabolism is all the chemical reactions inside the cells of the body. Normally, metabolism we think of as burning energy, but metabolism is a combination of breakdown processes as well as buildup processes. Growth and development from a single cell in us and the changes during your lifetime. These are things that all living things do. Responsiveness, the ability to sense and respond to changes in the environment. Regulation, the maintenance of a constant internal environment, and that ability to maintain that constant internal environment is called homeostasis. And reproduction, the ability to reproduce and give rise to offspring. What are the 4 tissue types in the human body? Nervous, epithelial, connective, and muscle. These are showing epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissue covers exposed surfaces and lines body cavities. The inner lining of the digestive system has epithelial tissue with it. So simple columnar on the left, simple squamous on the left and the middle, and simple cuboidal on the right. Connective tissue is what you see here. It can be solid, such as bone, liquid, such as blood, or intermediate, such as cartilage, because it's flexible. So there's bone, blood, and cartilage. More tissue types. Muscle tissue produces movement. You can see several types here. Skeletal muscle attaches to bones for conscious movement. Smooth muscle, unconscious movement in internal organs such as your stomach, intestines, and blood vessels. And cardiac muscle in the heart. So there's the pictures of these 3 types. Nervous tissue is important for communication. This is a spinal cord neuron from an ox. Brain, spinal cord, and nerves make up that. What are the organ systems in the order that they're studied? Integumentary is the skin, skeletal bones, muscular is your muscles, nervous is nerves, endocrine is your hormones, cardiovascular is your heart and blood vessels, lymphatic drains excess fluid and helps with immunity, respiratory is your ability to breathe, lungs and airways, digestive is for digesting food, urinary is for processing urine, and reproductive. Reproductive is almost always last. It's interesting to me because why do they put it last? It turns out it's the only system that you don't have to use to stay alive. You don't have to reproduce, but all the other ones you do need in order to stay alive. Integumentary is skin. It provides protection. It regulates body temperature by sending blood to the skin to dump heat or away from the skin to retain it. It's a site of cutaneous receptors, which are nerve cells. It synthesizes vitamin D. We'll be talking more about that later. Our ability to make vitamin D in our skin from sunlight. It prevents water loss. So even though we do sweat, it keeps water from being lost when you're not sweating. Skeletal system provides support and protection. It's the site of blood cell production or hematopoiesis. It stores calcium and phosphorus, allows for body movement by having muscles attached to it. The muscular system produces body movement, generates heat when muscles contract. That's why we overheat when we exercise. Nervous system, a regulatory system that controls body movement, responds to sensory stimuli, helps control all the other systems of the body. Judy, I'm sorry I'm going so quick. I do need to get to a meeting at 1, so I don't know how long this chapter is, so I'm going to have to move through this pretty quickly. And my wife is harassing me about doing this meeting at a non-normal time. So anyway, there's nervous system. It also responsible for consciousness, intelligence, memory. I'm trying to text her and talk to you guys at the same time. Not a good idea. Endocrine consists of glands and cell clusters that secrete hormones, some of which regulate body and cellular growth, chemical levels in the body, reproductive functions. Cardiovascular is your heart and blood vessels, consists of the heart and blood vessels, which move hormones, nutrients, gases, and wastes around inside your body. Lymphatic transports and filters lymph, which is interstitial fluid between the cells. Initiates an immune response when necessary. We have white blood cells inside the lymph nodes, which help us with our immunity. Respiratory system is responsible for exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and air of the lungs. Digestive, mechanically and chemically digests food materials, absorbs nutrients, expels waste products. Urinary filters blood and removes waste products from the blood. So that's how we generate urine and clean our blood. Concentrates waste products in the form of urine and expels urine from the body. Male reproductive system produces male cells, sperm, male hormones, testosterone, transfers sperm to the female. Female reproductive produces female sex cells, female hormones, estrogen and progesterone, receives sperm from the male, site of fertilization of the oocyte, which we sometimes call the egg, and it's the site of growth and development of the embryo and fetus within the uterus. Anatomical terminology, these are some things you should know. This is anatomical position that this woman is in, a specific body position in which an individual stands upright with the feet parallel and flat on the floor. Head is level and the eyes look forward towards the observer. The arms are at either side of the body with the palms facing forward and the thumbs pointing away from the body. More anatomical terminology. A plane is an imaginary surface that slices the body into specific sections. 3 major anatomical planes of reference are the coronal, transverse, and sagittal planes. The coronal plane, also called the frontal plane, you can see it here. It separates the body into front portions and back portions, anterior and posterior. Transverse plane, also called the cross-sectional plane. You can see it here cutting the person above and below, upper section and lower section. Cuts perpendicularly along the long axis of the body or organ. Separates it into both upper or superior and inferior lower parts. Sagittal plane is the one right here in the middle. It can be right in the middle and it can go left or right. In this case, it's what's called a mid-sagittal plane, but you can slide it left or right. In the same way, transverse can go up or down and coronal can move forward or backward. It divides the structure into left and right halves. It's called the mid-sagittal plane if it's right exactly in the center, but anywhere off center, it's just called the sagittal. A sagittal plane in the midline of the body is called the mid-sagittal plane. A plane that is parallel to the mid-sagittal plane, but either left or right, is called parasagittal or sagittal. A minor plane called the oblique plane passes through the specimen at an angle. Okay, some body directions. Anterior means towards the front, posterior towards the back. So front, back, anterior is in front of or towards the front, posterior is in back of or towards the back. It's not a specific place, it's just a direction, heading towards the front of you or heading towards the back. Dorsal is specifically the back portion of you. That's a specific location. And ventral is the front of you. That's a specific location. Relative to the head or tail, superior means above, moving towards the head, inferior, moving towards the feet. Caudal is specifically in the area of your lower back and your butt. Cranial is specifically having to do with your head. So these are both specific areas. These are direction. Okay, relative to the midline or center of the body, medial is towards the center, left to right, and lateral is away from the center towards the side, your sides. Deep is on the inside away from the surface of your skin, and superficial is on the outside towards the surface of your skin. So these are all directions, going towards the center, going towards the surface. Relative to the attachment point, now this only works for arms and legs. Proximal, closer to your shoulder, because that's the attachment point. Distal, away from your shoulder towards your fingertips. So proximal and distal have to do with structures that are attached to your core and not to the core itself. Body regions. The human body is partitioned into two main regions called the axial and appendicular regions. The axial region includes the head, neck, and trunk, which comprise the main vertical axis of our body. It does not include our shoulder blades or our hip bones, which are part of our appendicular region. So the limbs or appendages attached to the body's axis make up the appendicular region. Please note that your hip bones that attach to your legs and your shoulder blades and clavicles, which attach to your arms, are part of the appendicular and not axial skeleton. These show some superficial things that you should know. These are terms that will help you understand what a lot of other things later on we'll see. So this shows you all of these structures. Now, if you were taking this class in person, you would need to fill this in. But because it's online, I will not be asking you to come up with it because it'd be very easy for you to transfer the answers from one place to the other. This is the posterior view of the same image, showing you some of the key areas that will help you learn some of the other things, bone names, muscle names, etc. Body cavities and membranes. The posterior aspect, so everything along the back, has two enclosed cavities. Cranial cavity is formed by the cranium, it houses the brain, so cranial cavity here. And the spinal vertebral canal is where the spinal cord is, so you can see along the back. Both the thoracic, which is chest, and abdominal pelvic cavities are lined with a thin serous membranes, which are composed of two layers. The parietal layer lines the internal surface of the body wall. So imagine if you took out all your guts, this membrane would still be on the inside of that cavity. And the visceral layer covers all of those organs. So you would have the parietal and visceral layer touching each other. The visceral layer covers the organs. The parietal layer lines the inside of the cavity. Between the parietal and visceral layers, the serous membrane is the thin serous cavity, which is full of serous fluid. It's a lubricant that allows the organs to move within those cavities without having a problem with friction. Constant movement of the organs causes friction, so that serous fluid reduces it. Serous fluid reduces the friction, helps the organs move smoothly against both one another and the body wall. Body cavities and membranes continued. The median space is the thoracic. In the thoracic cavity is called the mediastinum. See it all the way through the center of your chest. It contains the heart, thymus, which is an organ right about here, esophagus, trachea, and major blood vessels. That's the mediastinum right here in the middle. Within the mediastinum, the heart is enclosed by a two-layer serous membrane called the pericardium. You may have heard of it. It goes around the heart. This is not something you really need to know. Basically, in Hollywood movies, when you cut open someone's abdominal cavity and their intestines just come falling out, their small intestines come falling out like rope, because of this omentum and the mesenteries, it doesn't really happen. So if you slice open someone's abdominal cavity, you can pull the organs out somewhat, but you can't just take them out like they were rope. So this shows that is a falsehood that Hollywood gets away with because most people don't know anatomy very well. Okay, right and left sides of the thoracic cavity contain the lungs. They are lined by two-layered serous membrane called the pleura, so it's very similar to what we were just talking about. The outer layer is the parietal pleura. It lines the internal surface of the thoracic wall. And the inner layer is called the visceral pleura. Remember, parietal lines the cavity, visceral covers the organ, and it covers, in this case, it covers the lung. The narrow, moist potential space between them is called the pleural cavity. Now, it's called a potential space because the two structures are right touching each other, but there's a little tiny little space where the fluid, the serous fluid, is found. So you can see parietal pleura, visceral pleura, and the tiny gap between them is called the pleural cavity. It's a potential space and can become an actual space during a pneumothorax. We'll be talking about that in physiology. Okay, more cavities. The abdominal pelvic cavity consists of the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. Abdominal here, pelvic down lower. The peritoneum is a moist two-layered serous membrane that lines the abdominal pelvic cavity. Remember, parietal and visceral. Okay, so these are the abdominal pelvic quadrants. So if somebody says, in what quadrant is the pain? This is right upper, left upper, right lower, left lower. So these are some other regions. I don't believe this is in your notes, but these are some named regions besides the four main ones. Abdominal pelvic cavity is partitioned into 9 smaller imaginary compartments. So these are just to kind of give a region. Epigastric means above the stomach, gastric meaning stomach. Okay, you do not need to know that, so you can skip this. And that is it. Okay, that is it for chapter 1 and it for my introductory lecture. Monica, welcome. You missed most of it, but I'm glad you're able to make it. You do want to watch the recording of the earlier portion of this. Does anybody have any questions about what I just talked about before we call it a day?
No, thank you. I'll definitely look at the recording. I just saw that it was moved up from 1:30 to 12:30, and that was my bad. I'm sorry.
No, it was 1:30 is the normal time. I just had an impromptu meeting that was scheduled at 1 that I couldn't miss. Normally, I hope I won't have any meetings at 1:30. But if I do find out about meetings that will move our lecture time, I'll try to let you know with a lot more advance notice than I did today. Today I was kind of freaking out a little bit because I had to get this assignment done. I had to meet with someone. They only had time at 1. You guys get the idea. But normally, yeah, life happens. But and in some situations, some part of the class, I may actually pre-record these, and there won't be any live lecture at all. So when you come to the module, you'll see the recording there, but there'll be no link for it because I will not be lecturing live on those a couple of weeks coming up. Any last minute questions before we call it a day?
I have one, Professor.
Sure, go for
it. Sorry, my voice is cracking. What about essay questions for this chapter? We're not going to have any.
I don't believe there are any essay questions for this particular chapter. The essay questions for the first test will come next week.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Monica, did you have anything?
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to look at the recorded lecture, but thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Monica, did you get my email?
It's in the syllabus, right? Or is there a different one?
There's an email, basically helpful hints that you should read before you start the class. That's not really in the syllabus. It should be in your inbox, Canvas inbox. So just read that carefully before you keep going and watch my lecture. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
If that's it, guys, thank you both for coming. I hope that I can have both of you again next week and more. It will normally be Mondays, 1:30 to 2:30. I hope to see you both and everybody else later next week. Have a great rest of your week. Please send me any questions that you have after reading that email and after making some effort to go through some of the assignments. Send that to me through Canvas and I'll do my best to answer. You can also bring questions with you next week to the lecture and I will answer them during the lecture. All right. Thank you both for coming. Have a great rest of your week and we'll see you next week, I hope. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye. Bye, Monica.
Bye.
Bye, Judy.